This is another episode where links feature heavily. If you aren't able to check them out right now, no worries. I put them in the show notes so you can get to them at your convenience. They all provide information that demonstrates the safety and effectiveness of vaccines, including COVID vaccines. If you already believe that vaccines are safe and effective, then I'm sure you'll find the links to be great resources. If you're either anti-vax or vaccine hesitant, then I'd like to ask you to consider something. In the course of life, we all form opinions. But even more fundamentally, we form ways of handling opinions. One approach is to hold on to an opinion forever once we form it. But I think you can see that that wouldn't be a good approach. Have you ever met someone who's unwilling to change their opinions about anything, no matter what? Yeah, it's not the best, right? On the flip side, someone could change their opinions too easily. If the newest or latest thing you hear always sounds the most compelling, you probably aren't all that grounded in a reliable way to find what's true. So constantly changing your opinion just because you come across something new and interesting isn't the best either. I think most people would agree that the best approach is somewhere in the middle. We shouldn't change our opinions flippantly, but we also shouldn't hold on to our opinions no matter what. The main thing I'd like to ask you to consider right now is this question. Under what conditions should I change my opinion? With this in mind, I'd like to share with you a time when I changed my opinion and why. I understand being anti-vax. The reason why is that I used to be anti-vax myself, and I maintained that view for a number of years. Eventually, though, I had to come to terms with the fact that my reasons were not based on demonstrable knowledge about vaccines or the diseases they were said to prevent. The way I came to hold anti-vaccine views had more to do with conspiracy theories than anything else. Plus, I found some of the testimonies of people who said vaccines had harmed them or their children convincing. But if I was going to be honest with myself, I had to acknowledge that I had formed an opinion about something that I really didn't know a whole lot about, and my reasons were ultimately based on secondary issues. I realized that the evidence that should be given the most weight in forming my views about vaccines should be the evidence directly relevant to the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. I had to be willing to give vaccines an honest investigation, with a genuine willingness to follow the evidence wherever it leads. When I did so, I found that the evidence in favor of vaccines was overwhelming. If I wanted to be someone who honestly cared to follow truth, I had to change my view, and so I did. This all happened years ago now. In light of COVID-19 and current vaccine hesitancy, I've pulled up some of the information that originally persuaded me that vaccines are safe and effective. In the process, I also came across some great resources that lay out the evidence demonstrating the safety and effectiveness of COVID vaccines in particular. In the show notes and in the blog article upon which this podcast is based, I've posted 4 links. The first is from healthychildren.org. It has tables listing study after study demonstrating the safety of vaccines. For each study, it gives a summary, the author's conclusion, and a link to the original paper in which the study was published. Looking over these studies reveals that they mount serious evidence that vaccines are safe. Some of the studies span a period of years and have hundreds of thousands of subjects, in some cases over 1 million. This evidence can't just be brushed aside. The next link is to ourworldindata.org/vaccination. It's hard for me to summarize this page in a way that does justice to it. It covers an enormous amount of evidence demonstrating the effectiveness of vaccines for a number of diseases. But I have to say, it does a great job of presenting this huge amount of data in a very digestible way. It has a handy table of contents and uses plenty of interactive charts and tables, and it provides sources for all the data. If you want evidence that vaccines are effective, here it is. The third link is to a more recent page created by the Agency for Clinical Innovation in New South Wales. It provides a continually updated table that organizes all the evidence you could hope for all things related to COVID vaccines. Each vaccine has its own column, and then each row provides different types of information. Safety, efficacy, and effectiveness are all included, and once again, the evidence is overwhelming that COVID vaccines are safe and effective. If you care about truth and want to deal with reality on its own terms, the evidence provided on this page cannot be ignored. The last link is a very easy-to-follow article published by McGill University's Office for Science and Society. While the first three links are pretty data-heavy, this last one is a more conversational article, though it also provides evidence through hyperlinks. It gives a nice summary of the evidence we have now that COVID vaccines have rolled out into the real world. And, once again, the evidence abounds. So, again, if you care about truth, if you want to be someone who accepts reality on its own terms, the information in these links will leave no room for reasonable doubts regarding vaccines. Stated positively, these links provide all the evidence needed for a reasonable mind to conclude that vaccines, including COVID vaccines, are safe and effective. If your opinion up until now has been anti-vax or vaccine hesitant, will you give the evidence provided here an honest investigation? If you do, you will only be showing that you care about truth. If instead you were to just dismiss this evidence, could you honestly claim to be someone who is willing to follow the evidence and who can be reasoned with? What principles are core to your identity? Are you someone who will dogmatically cling to your opinions in spite of the evidence? Or are you someone who cares about truth first and foremost? If the latter, then changing your opinion on vaccines in light of new evidence is just living up to the principles you already affirm. So, what do you say? Will you live up to those principles?